Welcome to the Holistic Accountant Podcast. The aim of this podcast is to demonstrate that many issues that your accountant deals with are multifaceted. Therefore, a holistic accountant's job is really to not only help you improve your business, but also help you improve your personal financial position. Before we get started today, I'd like to ask two favours. Firstly, if you enjoy this podcast, please share it amongst friends or colleagues that you think will all equally get some value from it, and or leave a rating where you listen to this podcast. It would help us tremendously. Secondly, if there are any topics that you're interested in, please let us know. There's an email address in the show notes that you can just drop us a quick email and ask us to present on a particular topic. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so today Mena and I would like to talk about black hole expenses, which are really expenses that you incur before you start or buy a business. But given this is really tax-based, I'll really hand it over to Mena and he can sort of take us through, how do you navigate that and how do you deal with them?
Definitely. So black hole expenses are incurred when you come to, when you're sort of prospecting or looking to buy a business. So it could include things such as, your travel expenses, expenses basically to, your legal review of lease documents, for example, legal review of your contract, your accountant's advice around sort of structuring and the actual formation of those expenses, formation of those sort of trusts or companies and so forth. So all these types of expenses, since they're incurred prior to the actual inception of ownership of the business, they're considered what is called a black hole expense. Now, with these types of expenses, you don't get an outright deduction for them. So you need to amortize them or depreciate them for a more sort of commonly known term over a period of 5 years. Or if the lease is, for example, 3 years, then you can depreciate it or amortize it over 3 years.
Yeah. So how do you go about, obviously then it's important firstly to know to keep a record of these expenses. And are there any expenses that wouldn't be considered a black hole expense?
Yeah, so an expense such as a franchise fee aren't generally considered a black hole expense. They're considered to be capital expenses. So they tend, again, depending, there's a bit more complexity around franchise agreements and whether it's a license fee or a franchise fee, but they tend to sit on the balance sheet as a capital cost or a goodwill as such, and not and won't be considered a black hole expense.
Yeah, so can you depreciate franchise fees?
No, you can't depreciate franchise fees.
Okay, so
yeah.
It is a complete capital cost.
Yeah.
We did a podcast in episode 7 of season 2 where we talked about how to go about buying a business, taking you through the due diligence process and working out the viability, valuations, all those sorts of things. So it's important to consider these black hole expense rules when going through that process. And it's really just about really good record keeping. If you keep a note of a record of all expenses that you incur through that process, then your accountant can go through them and work out how best to treat them from a taxation perspective. Okay, I think black hole expenses was a really good topic to talk about, particularly for people that are interested in starting their own business. Something that for people just to be aware of. That's it for this week. Until next week, bye for now.